All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're taking a trip back to ancient India.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, we're going to the Gupta era,
Mm-hmm.
specifically, so that's like from 320 to 550 CE.
Okay.
And I bet a lot of you out there already know this period
Yeah, it's famous.
as a golden age for art and intellect.
For sure.
But the real question is, how did this relatively small dynasty
Oh, yeah.
spark such a massive cultural explosion? That's what we're going to get into today.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Uncover the secrets of the Guptas' success, especially their clever use of, you guessed it, royal patronage.
Can't wait.
So before we get into all the glitz and glamour of the Golden Age,
Right.
it's important to remember
Okay.
that the Guptas didn't just inherit a unified empire.
Yeah, they had some work to do, right?
Yeah, so imagine India before them.
Okay. I'm picturing it.
It's a mosaic of these smaller kingdoms,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them tracing their roots back to the Mahajanapadas.
Oh, yeah, the Mahajanapadas.
Think of them kind of like the regional power players.
It's the OGs.
Yeah, who set the stage for the Guptas' grand entrance.
Gotcha. So the Guptas had to play their cards.
Yeah, exactly. They did not just waltz in and take over.
So what were their winning moves then? How did they rise to the top?
Well, they were basically strategic masterminds.
Okay, I like it already.
They combined military might, of course.
Right, can't forget that.
But with these really smart alliances
Smart.
to expand their influence.
So they're playing the game.
But what's super interesting to me
Yeah.
is their understanding of what we now call
Okay.
soft power.
Interesting.
And I think that's a really key concept here.
I think so too.
It's not just about conquering territory.
Right.
It's about conquering hearts and minds.
It's about reputation.
Yeah, cultivating that reputation.
Exactly. So they were going for like the benevolent ruler vibe.
I think so, yeah. Not a pirate vibe.
Makes sense.
More, we're here to bring stability,
Yeah.
justice,
Mm-hmm.
and crucially, they wanted to be seen as champions of the arts.
Oh, interesting.
And this wasn't just like, oh, we like pretty things.
Right. There's a strategy behind it.
It was totally calculated
To enhance their power.
to boost their prestige.
I can already see some parallels to today.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, how modern nations use cultural influence. It's fascinating.
for sure. The Guptas were early adopters of this.
Ahead of their time.
So how did this soft power, this calculated, we love the arts vibe,
Right.
actually manifest in their patronage system?
Good question.
Were they just throwing money at artists? Or was there more to it?
It was way more sophisticated than that.
Okay, good.
Think of it like a carefully designed ecosystem to nurture creativity.
I like it.
They did things like granting land to scholars.
Oh,
They established temples as these vibrant hubs of learning.
and temples were also centers for the arts, right?
Absolutely, for artistic innovation.
So it's all kind of intertwined.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got the royal courts,
Right.
which were like magnets
Oh, yeah.
attracting the best poets,
With best music.
the most talented dancers of the era.
So you're a talented artist.
yeah,
You want to make it big, get the support of the Guptas.
that's the ticket to success.
That's the way to go.
So this all sounds great, but what did this patronage actually lead to?
Yeah, what were the results? What are some of the standout achievements from this era?
Oh, get ready for some amazing stuff.
Okay, I am ready. Hit me.
Okay, picture this.
Mm.
You're walking into the Ajanta Caves.
Okay, I've seen pictures.
Yeah, and they're even more breathtaking in person.
Wow.
With these murals, these vivid, colorful murals depicting Buddhist tales.
It's incredible, the detail
It really is.
and the scale of it.
It's mind-blowing.
And then you've got those awe-inspiring stupas,
Yes.
those domed shrines,
Oh, grand.
blending architectural grandeur with this spiritual purpose.
Yeah, they were designed for reflection, for contemplation.
It's not just about looking pretty, it's about something deeper.
Exactly. There's a whole other level to it.
Okay, now I'm really feeling that Golden Age vibe.
Oh, but we're just getting started.
Okay, what else is there?
We've got the epic tales, the Ramayana,
Not sick?
and the Mahabharata,
Ah, love those.
filled with action and adventure,
Drama.
but also exploring these timeless moral dilemmas, stuff
Yeah.
that still resonates with us today.
For sure.
And then there are the Upanishads,
Oh, the Upanishads, yeah.
delving into these really profound philosophical questions about the nature of reality and the self.
It's mind-blowing stuff we are still debating centuries
I
later.
know, right? Like, what is reality? Who are we?
Big questions.
So it seems like the Guptas were aiming for a cultural legacy that would really last.
Yeah, they wanted to leave their mark.
And did they succeed?
Absolutely. They were not just lucky, they were architects of a cultural renaissance.
They were deliberate about it.
And their patronage, this whole system they created,
Yeah.
had this ripple effect, this lasting imprint on India.
It shaped India's artistic and intellectual landscape.
It really did.
Yeah.
And here's what I find fascinating. If you look closely at the art and literature, from this period, you start to notice some recurring themes, some patterns.
Oh, interesting. Like what kind of themes?
Well, there's harmony, duty, and the pursuit of knowledge,
Huh, those are interesting.
which are all values that the Guptas themselves really embodied and wanted to promote.
So it's almost like they were using art
Right.
as a subtle form of propaganda.
Yeah, to weave their ideals into society itself.
Clever.
Very clever.
Yeah, so they're subtly reinforcing their legitimacy through art.
Right. Shaping the narrative.
Exactly.
So maybe a bit of soft power manipulation going on there.
Perhaps a little.
Makes you wonder,
Mm.
did everyone really benefit from this Gupta-sponsored cultural boom?
It's a good question.
Or was it more complicated than that?
Yeah, it's important to remember that no golden age is without its shadows.
Right. Every era has its complexities.
Exactly. And while the Guptas did usher in this era of unprecedented creativity,
Mm-hmm.
their society wasn't exactly a utopia.
Right. So there were some downsides?
Definitely. And one of the key things to remember is the caste system.
Ah, yes, the caste system. Always a big topic when we talk about ancient India.
It was very much in place during the Gupta era.
Right, with that rigid social hierarchy.
Yeah, so how did that play out in this context?
That's what I'm curious about. Did the Guptas try to change it?
Well, they didn't abolish it,
Okay,
but they did use it to their advantage.
interesting. How so?
They saw it as a way to maintain order and stability in society.
Okay, so everyone has their designated role,
Yeah, everyone plays their part.
and that contributes to the harmony of the empire.
That was the idea.
But couldn't that also reinforce existing inequalities?
That's the big question.
What about the people born into lower castes?
Right.
Did they really get to share in this so-called golden age?
That's a crucial point.
Because if your opportunities are limited from birth,
Exactly.
how much can you really benefit from this cultural flourishing?
Yeah, while the Guptas might have envisioned a harmonious society, their vision was built on this system that limited opportunities for certain groups.
So it's a mixed bag then.
I think that's a fair assessment.
You have these incredible artistic and intellectual achievements.
Unprecedented advancements.
But at the same time, you have the perpetuation of social inequalities.
That's the reality.
It's a reminder that even the most glorious periods of history often have a more complicated reality.
Absolutely. And to truly understand the Gupta era,
Yeah,
we need to acknowledge both the brilliance and the blemishes.
I like that. The brilliance and the blemishes. Well said.
It's all part of the story.
So we've explored how the Guptas used patronage to fuel this cultural renaissance and how they used it to solidify their rule.
It was a clever strategy.
But empires don't last forever, do they?
And unfortunately, no.
What eventually happened to the Guptas?
Well, like all empires, they faced challenges they couldn't overcome.
Okay, so their golden age didn't just fade away.
Not exactly. There were specific reasons for their decline.
Give me the rundown. What brought about their downfall?
Imagine a perfect storm brewing.
Oh.
You've got relentless pressure from invaders,
From where?
particularly the Hunas from Central Asia.
The Hunas. Okay.
These nomadic warriors were known for their military prowess,
And?
their desire for plunder.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for trouble.
It definitely was. These Huna raids were a constant drain on the empire's resources.
So external threats chipping away at their strength.
Exactly.
But were there also internal problems weakening them from within?
Absolutely. As the empire expanded,
Mm-hmm.
cracks started to appear in that facade of unity.
Ah, I see. So the bigger they got, the harder it was to hold it all together.
Right. Different branches of the royal family started vying for power.
Oh, internal conflicts. Classic.
Classic power struggles.
And as the central authority weakened, local rulers probably saw an opportunity, right?
Exactly. They saw a chance to assert their independence.
It's like that saying, united we stand, divided we fall.
And that's exactly what happened to the Guptas.
So the combination of invasions and internal divisions was too much to handle.
It was a recipe for disaster.
And their empire fractured into smaller kingdoms.
It's a familiar story throughout history.
Sadly, yet, even the most powerful empires are vulnerable to those forces.
It's a reminder that nothing lasts forever.
But what about their legacy? Did their achievements simply vanish with the fall of the empire?
Not at all. The Guptas' influence on India's cultural landscape was incredibly resilient.
So even though their political power crumbled,
Yeah.
their cultural influence endured.
Think of it this way. They planted seeds that continued to blossom long after their reign ended.
Beautiful imagery.
Their patronage led to advancements in mathematics, astronomy, literature, and the arts.
So these advancements became cornerstones of Indian civilization.
Exactly. Their influence can still be felt today.
It's amazing to think about how those choices made by rulers centuries ago can have such a lasting impact.
It really is, and it highlights the importance of studying history.
Yeah, it's not just about memorizing facts and dates. It's about understanding the connections between the past and present.
Right. It's about seeing how the past shapes the world we live in today.
Absolutely. So we've been focusing on the big picture.
The empire, the rulers, the major achievements.
But I'm also curious about the everyday people.
Yeah, what was life actually like for the average person in Gupta India?
Let's zoom in on that. Imagine yourself living in a bustling Gupta city.
Okay, I'm there.
What's it like?
The air is filled with the aroma of spices and incense.
Oh, I love that.
You hear merchants hawking their wares,
Busy streets,
kids playing, musicians performing.
lively. What about their homes? What did people live in?
Most people lived in houses made of brick or wood,
Okay,
often with courtyards for light and ventilation.
sounds nice.
Inside, they'd use mats and cushions for seating.
Simple but comfortable.
And they decorated their homes with textiles and pottery.
So pretty similar to some homes today.
In some ways, yes.
But of course, the style and furnishings vary depending on wealth and social status.
Naturally.
Okay, let's talk about food. What did people eat back then?
Well, agriculture was the backbone of their economy.
Right.
So grains like rice, wheat, and barley were staples,
Basic.
along with lentils, beans, vegetables, and fruits.
A balanced diet.
They also had dairy products and were known for their use of spices.
I can imagine those flavorful dishes.
And they loved their desserts.
What kind of desserts?
They'd make sweet treats with honey, sugarcane, and milk.
Sounds delicious.
So overall, a pretty varied and tasty diet.
Makes sense. So we've got homes, food. What about clothing? Any fashion trends in Gupta India?
They favored loose-fitting garments made from cotton or silk.
Okay, comfortable and practical.
Men typically wore dhotis,
The classic dhoti.
and women wore saris.
Beautiful, both of which are still worn today.
It's amazing how some styles transcend time.
Right, and they also love your jewelry.
Oh, yeah, they adorn themselves with pieces made from gold, silver, and precious stones.
So they definitely appreciated beauty and adornment.
For sure.
Okay, so we've got their homes, their food, their fashion.
Mm-hmm.
What about social life? What did people do for fun and entertainment?
Festivals were a big part of their social calendar.
I bet festive people.
They'd gather for religious celebrations, musical performances, dance recitals,
Sounds fun.
and sporting events like wrestling matches and chariot races.
Oh, wow, I can picture those chariot races. Pretty exciting.
Definitely a spectacle.
But all this talk of festivals and celebrations makes me wonder,
Yeah.
was everyone living the dream in Gupta India?
Well, it's important to remember that no society is perfect.
Right, there are always challenges.
Well, even during this golden age, there were inequalities and social issues.
Okay, let's talk about that. What were some of the issues people were grappling with back then?
Well, as we discussed earlier, the caste system created social divisions.
Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme.
It's a major factor in understanding ancient Indian society.
And while it provided structure and belonging for some, it also created inherent inequalities.
That were difficult to overcome.
Makes you think about those universal human struggles for equality.
Yeah, the desire for social justice.
It transcends time and cultures.
Absolutely, and the Gupta era is no exception.
So despite all their advancements,
Their achievement.
there was still grappling with those fundamental questions of fairness and social mobility,
It's about seeing the whole picture.
the light and shadow of this period.
Exactly, not just focusing on the golden age highlights.
What else was going on beneath the surface?
Well, despite the overall prosperity, there were pockets of poverty and hardship.
That makes sense. Not everyone benefits equally from a booming economy.
Right, and certain groups, like laborers and those in lower castes, often struggled to make ends meet.
Unfortunately, economic inequality is a problem that's persisted throughout history.
It's a challenge that many societies have faced.
So, were there any efforts to address these social and economic disparities during the Gupta era?
The Guptas did implement some policies aimed at helping the less fortunate.
Okay, like what?
They established charitable institutions,
Okay.
provided relief during times of famine,
That's important.
and even funded public works projects to create jobs.
So they weren't completely oblivious to the plight of the less fortunate.
They recognized the need to support those in need.
And they made some attempts to mitigate those inequalities.
Yes, and it's important to acknowledge those efforts, even if they weren't always entirely successful.
Right. It's about recognizing the complexities and nuances,
The attempts to create a more just and equitable society.
even within the limitations of their time.
Exactly. And by exploring those efforts, we can gain a deeper understanding of the Gupta era and its impact on India.
So we've seen the dazzling achievements and we've explored some of the complexities of the Gupta era.
Yeah, it's a fascinating mix.
But I want to circle back to this idea of patronage of the arts.
Okay.
Because it wasn't just about creating beautiful things, right?
No, it was definitely more than that.
It was about creating a specific image.
Exactly. The Guptas were masters of, you could call it cultural messaging.
I like that.
They used art and architecture as tools to reinforce their power and legitimacy.
Oh, so it's like those magnificent temples we talked about earlier.
Yes, exactly.
With the intricate carvings and sculptures.
Depicting scenes from Hindu mythology.
It's almost like those temples were giant billboards,
Haha. Yeah, I see what you mean.
proclaiming the Guptas' piety and their right to rule.
It's like saying, look at us, we are favored by the gods.
And they didn't just stop at temples, did they?
Nope. They used every opportunity.
Like what?
Well, coins became these tiny canvases for propaganda,
Oh, interesting.
with images of the emperor performing Vedic rituals or striking these heroic poses,
Oh, I've seen those.
all carefully crafted to project this image of power, piety, and prosperity.
So it's like they were using every medium at their disposal
They were
to shape public perception,
to control the narrative.
create that narrative that would make their rule seem unassailable.
Precisely. It was a brilliant strategy.
But did it actually work? Did people buy into this carefully crafted image?
It's impossible to know for sure what was going on in the minds of every Gupta citizen.
Right, of course.
But if we look at the evidence, the inscriptions, the literature, the artwork from this period,
Yeah.
it's clear that they were incredibly successful at creating this lasting image of themselves.
As these benevolent and righteous rulers,
Exactly.
makes you wonder how much of history is about actual events versus how those events are framed and remembered.
It's such a fascinating question, and the Guptas clearly understood the power of controlling the narrative.
It's like they were pioneers of ancient public relations.
Uh-huh. In a way, they were.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, from their rise to power to their patronage of the arts.
Their social complexities, their use of cultural messaging, it's been quite a deep dive.
It has.
So what's the one key insight you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the most important takeaway is this. The Gupta era wasn't just a fleeting moment of brilliance in Indian history. It was a period that laid the foundation for so much of what we associate with Indian culture and civilization today.
That's a powerful statement.
Their contributions to art, literature, science, mathematics, they continue to resonate centuries later.
It's mind-blowing to think about. Those choices made by rulers centuries ago having such a lasting impact.
It speaks to the interconnectedness of history, how the past shapes the present, and how those echoes continue to influence us today.
Couldn't have said it better myself, folks. We've reached the end of our deep dive into the Gupta era.
I hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you enjoyed this journey back in time.
It's been a pleasure exploring this remarkable period with you.
And we hope you gained a new appreciation for this fascinating chapter in Indian history.
Absolutely, it's a story worth knowing.
And we hope you'll join us again for another deep dive into the past.
There are so many more stories to uncover, so much more to explore.
Until then, keep learning, keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
We'll see you next time.